Hey everybody, Matt Johnston here with another legal update. So every once in a while, my favorite worlds of soccer and the law collide, and this one is kind of interesting. Uh, late last week, I posted a video, and it's going to be linked below as well. That video was talking about whether or not an employer can fire an employee for making racist comments or other types of very derogatory or incitement to violence or calls for violence on their personal social media page, on the employee's personal social media page. And I stated that yes, that's possible for an employer to do that. There is a bit of a caveat, and that is when that employee is on a contract. And we'll get to that in just a second. The LA Galaxy, probably behind the New York Red Bulls, my second most hated team in MLS because they got to 5 championships before my beloved DC United. But leaving that aside, the LA Galaxy had a player on its roster by the name of Alexander Katai. Katai had a wife by the name of Taya. Taya made some incredibly racist and derogatory comments on social media. And the LA Galaxy fired Katai for that. Now, Katai, like all Major League Soccer players, is on a contract. It's a collective bargaining contract, and Katai has certain responsibilities and he has certain rights. So the question became whether or not the LA Galaxy could fire Katai for behavior that his wife engaged in. Katai was very quick to publicly denounce his wife's statements. Probably didn't make things very comfortable at home, but we'll leave that question for the family law attorneys. But the LA Galaxy and Katai decided to mutually part ways earlier this week, which is fine. It's a fair action to take because it's unlikely that Katai would be welcome in the locker room on a team that does have black players and minority players. And it's not likely that Katai's wife would be anything but persona non grata at the club anyway. So the Katai and the LA Galaxy decided to mutually terminate his contract, which is provided for in the contract. So the question becomes a very interesting one. Can an employer terminate an employee for what their spouse or partner does? And that, my friends, is a very, very, very dangerous road to go down. As you can imagine, it's one thing to hold an employee responsible for their own behavior, but to hold an employee responsible for other people's behavior is probably beyond the pale, even if they're married. So while this one ended up with the parties deciding to mutually part ways, I think that had Katai decided to make an effort to contest the termination, he would probably have very, very good legal grounds not to do it. So he would be able to maintain his job. In theory, even under the contract. My knowledge of the NFL or the MLS Players Union's collective bargaining contract I don't think that there's any way to punish a player for the conduct of their spouse or family. Probably not, I would imagine. But leaving that aside, it is probably a very, very bad idea for employers to start taking that line. Largely because, again, as I said, while you can hold an employee responsible for their own actions, holding them responsible for other people's actions is probably not a good idea. So the question becomes, can you require an employee to denounce those statements? And that's an interesting question. Chances are, and in my belief, no, you're not going to be able to require the employee to engage in specific kinds of activity that's not related to their specific job. Now, interestingly enough, Major League Soccer and many other professional sports do have some very specific minority community outreach efforts, largely in an effort to market the league and bring about, bring people into the league, bring people into the sport, and that's perfectly fine. And you can require as part of their activity to engage in those conduct. But this is behavior by a spouse that's well outside the accepted norm of behavior, and it's also well outside the control of the employee. So my suggestion is if you have an employee spouse who's spouting off things, you may want to have a conversation with your employee, but you can't really do anything about it. It's a bad road to go down. In the meantime, I'm hoping Major League Soccer gets back up and playing really, really soon, because man, do I miss soccer. And, there is a little part of me that takes a little bit of glee in LA Galaxy's little misfortunes in the world. But I certainly don't want to see the team faced with any backlash for the behavior of somebody who's not an employee. In the meantime, be safe, have a good day, and we'll speak to you later. Bye-bye.